Ah.
Okay, right. Did it? Oh, I had created another broadcast. It's okay.
Interesting. I'm not boiling in the dark because it's so hot this end. So too droopy to be live streaming an image.
Right. Very good evening. Welcome to the 1873 TV. The name is Wildfire DJ. And this evening, joined by Mr. M as well as my boy. Good evening.
Good evening.
Wildfire. Fancy things we've got going on at the start of the show today.
It's improvements. Utilizing technology and making everything fancy.
Right. We like fancy.
I know we thrive with fancy. So yeah, this evening it's a battle of ideas. The Hopewell Chin'ono Factor. What could be on President Mnangagwa's mind? I think this is about ideas and battling those ideas just to get an insight of what could be going on the president's mind. You might, for those that are joining us, you might know that Hopewell Chin'ono, I think if not, he's being moved to Kurubi Maximum Prison from Harare Central, where he's been held after being denied bail yesterday again. All right, so this is where we are to battle those ideas on the Hopewell Chin'ono's issue. But it's not just a Hopewell, it's about bringing ideas of justice to the ground, and let us share our views together. You can participate via social media platforms, or you can join in the conversation, though there's a twist to it. All right, Mr. M.
Yeah, I thought, as we discussed earlier, that we should use the C2C initiative as a platform to provoke thought,
yes,
insights, ideas about what is wrong with Zimbabwe. So most of the roads seem to be directed or end in the president's mind. He should have known. Some would say he must know. Others would say he ought to know. So all these scenarios that the president must bear the responsibility for what is happening. So the first thing, does he know who Hopewell Chin'ono is? If so, in what context? If we Google today, do we find anything that suggests that the president has said something directly about Hopewell Chin'ono, or it is Chinamasa and others who are speaking on behalf of somebody or another organ? On the part of Miriam, I don't know whether you have Googled and attempted to link President Mnangagwa and Hopewell Chin'ono in the recent days to establish whether we can use that to penetrate his mind.
Well, thank you, Mr. M, and thank you, DJ Moto. What I'm still trying to establish from the whole unfolding around Hopewell Chin'ono's arrest and subsequent denial of bail several times is, what is the crime at law? What is it that he was arrested for? Why did the police go to his house? Why did they break his door down? Why did they take him in? Why did he why is his Twitter handle deactivated? All
Already,
those
you're already,
issues.
you're already going beyond. Our task is just to,
Yeah, but let me articulate myself, because
yeah,
I'm not understanding any of what's happening. So I am filled more with questions that are needing answers. So if there seems to be an unjustified arrest, and then the unfolding events, it's something that I can't make sense of. And you bring up the issue of, does Mnangagwa have an idea who Hopewell is? For me, the unleashing of all the statements that he refers to the dark forces, where is it supposed to land at? Is it related to Hopewell? So I've got more questions around the whole issue of Hopewell Chin'ono's arrest and denial of bail and incarceration and what have you, than I could have answers. So I'm here to discuss with others and to try and unpack what could be happening in Zimbabwe right now.
yeah. In fact, what we had said is, let's limit our discussion to something that can then be taken further. Just the state of mind
Right.
of,
Okay.
a president, and whether this information about Hopewell Chin'ono, his tweets, have been shared with him. There's reason to believe that it has. He knows what's going on. But to what extent, we don't know. And in terms of utterances, if there's anything that we have researched that would establish that the president directly commented on Hopewell, if so, in what respect? But then taken from the statements that have been made by others, whether we can extrapolate and link that directly to the president's state of mind and constructive knowledge. And if he doesn't know, now he knows that the issue at best arises out of social media, Twitter, with the word incitement of public violence is now invoked. So we just wanted to think about ideas about government, accountability of people who work in government, in terms of upholding and defending the promise of the Constitution in terms of Bill of Rights. So in this case, if we were to sum up the state of knowledge on behalf of the people who are involved in the value chain leading to the loss of freedom on the part of Gary Vume and Hopewell. They are saying that a date was fixed, 31st July, and there was supposed to be a demo, but that demo, in terms of objectives, was meant to unseat or uproot or alienate the party of ZANU-PF and its members in government, outside government. So we take note of the statement that the president made in connection with economic sabotage, and perhaps we can Google that so that we get to the state of mind of the person. when this happened, whether his state of mind is translated into some difficulties or some problems for others. So if we type, is it Mnangagwa, and that was what, in July, is it? 2020.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
And then this was to do with economic sabotage, I think. Because I don't think he mentioned some newspapers, but and Kazembe, I think, is the one who mentioned something to do with enemies of state. Yeah, it says economic sabotage will not be tolerated. So there is a mindset that there are people who have destructive minds, who want to act outside the confines of the Constitution, and whose end game is to remove the current public office bearers. Do you get the sense that there is some developing thought that the government is under siege, and that there are forces that are working constructively and collusively to effect a change of administration?
Now, if I may ask, Mr. M, that Mnangagwa coming out with such a statement as articulated in the media or as shown in the videos that he was recorded saying it out, is that on the basis of him being king of Zimbabwe, or has the judiciary done preliminary work, the judiciary of Zimbabwe, and deemed it so? Or is Mnangagwa sitting on a high throne somewhere in Zimbabwe determining the fate of individuals that speak out as allowed or as permissible by the Constitution?
I think there is two aspects to it. The Constitution provides for the president to be the chief guardian of the Constitution. He has a duty in terms of the Constitution. He took an oath to protect and uphold the Constitution. So if he believes that the Republic is under threat, then he can make those pronouncements. But you raise an issue of what are the checks and balances in relation to this, and what is the link between the president and the law enforcement officers who now manifest themselves in the police, the NPA, and the other people who are involved in processing this matter as a crime. So he does have a duty to protect. And Ranje says, Hopewell exposed Collins Mnangagwa's company that decorates the State House. So son told dad, that's perhaps a speculation. What we are saying is that the mindset, the ideas in the president's mind in terms of his utterances and in terms of the measures taken in the name of COVID to have more restrictive measures, whether that was instigated by fear of something known from intelligence, that something is about to happen, may happen, and if you are negligent, this thing could be a matchstick, and it could end up burning all of us. So let us not take any chances. Let's stop it and nip it in the bud. But the president himself, when he looks at people like Hopewell, do you think the president regards Hopewell as a journalist or an activist?
Right. I would say he looks at Hopewell as an activist, as a regime change agent. Because if he looked at Hopewell as a journalist, he would actually appreciate what Hopewell has done in this case.
So that's your view.
Yeah.
But we don't know the state of mind of the president. But
we can just
think the president, by nature and temperament and attitude, he takes kindly to being criticized?
Well, in trying to get into Mnangagwa's mind, as it were, one would want to use, I hope, whatever is out there in the public domain or is in print or is on record as coming out of him as to inform his state of mind at various stages of his life. Now, Mnangagwa is somebody who's referred to an entire group of society as cockroaches. And such a person, such a mindset, anything is possible.
So, no, we are trying to establish, to understand temperament, just to take circumstantial evidence. We know we are not perfect. We can never penetrate someone's mind.
Yeah, but past character, what one is capable of doing can inform his current actions as well, doesn't it?
You are getting to the essence of the show. That's really, this is what it's all about. We are trying to build a community that goes beyond the headlines, that goes to the mind of evil ideas. There's somebody in the food chain who may hold views that speak to the kind of actions that follow, that manifest themselves in the attitude that bail must not be granted. As in the ordinary sense, bail would be granted when the person poses no threat.
Right.
And why a tweet would then constitute an act of treason.
Just some data and a phone. Not even a gun or a spear.
Ourselves to be on Twitter or Facebook Live. Some people are watching. And it may very well be that whatever you say can be used against you. So this is the reason.
We've got another comment here that says Mnangagwa's statement mirrors that by Chinamasa and borrows from economic sabotage speeches by Robert Mugabe. Ntogozo, Chile.
Yeah. So we are saying that there's a kind of mind or an idea that those in government must not be criticized publicly. And if you do
left
so,
alone,
you will.
So if you criticize those in government, you automatically become the enemy of the state.
You know, they will say that criticize by be constructive and ask us what should be criticized. And
but then where is democracy then? And freedom of speech?
Don't use slogans that ZANU-PF must go in your excitable moments.
Excitable moments. Interesting point. But this is, again, the idea of him seeing his role as coming down on a, whether be it a citizen, an activist or a journalist, should the office of the president be used in that manner, such that he brought an entire country to a standstill because of a couple of tweets by two gentlemen, Ngarivume and Chin'ono. Is that what the whole idea of a president of a republic is about? To feel so threatened by a citizen expressing their right to speak against what they feel as unjust and unfair, and errors instituted by government of the day. Is that what the president should be used for? Bringing an entire community. We heard so many deaths that then ensued as a result of the shutdown. People couldn't get to hospitals. People couldn't get food. People couldn't get, everything came to a standstill. So is that what Zimbabwe is all about in the mind of Mnangagwa?
No, you're already making a conclusion that he is a chief master.
Well, there's evidence to show that the 31st was so, the utterances for protests against how he's running his office is what led to the total shutdown on the 31st. So,
no, if we let that as an allegation, that it remains an allegation until it's proved that he acted on his ideas. But right now, if we just look at the ideas of a person in terms of civil liberties, in terms of temperament, in terms of attitude, that is he a person who would respect anyone who seeks to advocate for a change of administration based on one case that was advanced and led to the dismissal of a minister and charging of the minister and other parties in that arrangement. So when we look at ideas, we know that some people have ideas that will never find expression in terms of real work. Some people can talk, but nothing comes out of it. So we see somebody building a whole ecosystem, including what Miriam was talking about, the lockdown, just based on the fear of two people, or there's something that could be at play that would result in people taking these preemptive measures because things are not well beyond the journalists, and they see the journalists or the people who are at the forefront as part of a larger scheme that is determined to change the status quo by hook or crook. So those are the
So I see it as a way of covering up for the bigger picture that they are seeing that we are not yet privy to. So shutting down two individuals, I mean, one played a part, like you said, in the arrest and dismissal of the then Minister of Health, known as DJ. So you can't then turn around and say this individual is trying to overthrow or is pushing for the overthrowing of the current sitting government, when the same individual helped expose the malpractice of the then health minister. So it's like they are using just Hopewell as a cover up of the bigger picture. That is.
So are you saying they're psychic about what Hopewell was going to expose next about ED?
Look, why would you then block his tweet was nowhere to be found, Twitter handle. Then it came
not Hopewell himself that disabled his tweet when
and then all the tweets were deleted when the account was active. He had 0 tweets. I think the following day.
Oh, okay. So, before he, I missed that.
Exactly. Yeah. So all the tweets on his handle were not present. So yeah, that is my thinking.
But it, like Miriam is saying, that it could be him who had taken the tweets so that they have no evidence, because the foundation of their case is that there were tweets, and the state has to prove that the tweets exist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but at the moment there are no tweets, right?
No, which means
the account is disabled at the moment, so we can't tell whether there are any. It's like it's Masiwa and Strive Masiwa's Twitter handles. You can't find any content until they reactivate them, following their justice cry out to be by other designated people. But at any rate, when Twitter handles are disabled, it would appear as if there's no tweets available. So it's only when the owner of the Twitter account reactivates will they become visible again.
Okay. We have Brian who says Comrade R.G. Mugabe would never have paid compensation to white colonizers for all they did to us. Why now? I think, look at the facts. The issue of compensation for improvements was always a live issue. Even under Mugabe, it was an agreed position that they will not pay for the land, but they will pay for the improvements. So I don't know what to take of that. That's the law, that's the position, that's the promise. And that remains what it is. But where we are is we're just trying to build a community of shared understanding in terms of state of mind. We may be looking at people in terms of their understanding of government. Some people understand government to be this carrot. Some people see the government as a stick to be used to whip people into submission. So there are ideas about government that are never reconciled. There are people who have been in government for too long. And the reason they are there is because they believe genuinely that they are better equipped to protect the public and to anticipate what is good or bad to the public. And therefore, anticipatory justice becomes an issue for us to consider, where I would reconstruct you before you commit, before you are sunk, that I am a paternal instrument in your life, and I know you don't mean well for the others, so I have a duty to put you in the freezer for a while, so that you don't do what you're not supposed to do, but you're a kid. If you are not a kid, then you can't be doing it alone. You can't acquire SMM alone. There has to be somebody behind it. So the idea is, how can you be so brazen, so gung-ho? Who is behind you? And we will put you out so that we see who will complain first.
Yeah, we want to flush out your handlers.
Yeah, we want to expose them.
This goes to what you're saying, that flashing out someone's handlers. This is what Ntokozo is saying. What was on the mind of Mnangagwa may only be understood from a knowledge of Chin'ono's information sources and from understanding Mnangagwa's speech audience. It then goes to say the president can only be afraid of an internal revolt, not external influence on economic sabotage.
Yeah.
So interesting, my boy's limited grade 7 English would need to break that down. It's twofold for me, if I'm hearing that right. So Mnangagwa's concerns, trying to get into Mnangagwa's mind, is that there are people that he's targeting within his circles that are possibly working with Chin'ono. So if I put the pressure on Chin'ono, to whom they're giving information, I can be able to flush them out and single them out, and then long may I reign over Zimbabwe.
But wasn't that what happened to the late RG when they said it's not you, but it's the enemies, criminals that they're targeting, that are around you. So, so are we not seeing a repeat of what happened to good old Bob?
Yeah, but when you look at the state of mind of somebody, then if I believe that government can do no wrong, then I'll act accordingly. And then even the incarceration is good for you.
It's for your own safety.
It's for your own good.
It's to the public order. And therefore, we are stockholders. We are entitled to anticipate the danger in you. And if we don't manage it, you could be a menace to yourself. So
we're doing this in your best interest.
In the public interest, because we know what the public is thinking. After all, we won the election. And the next election is 2023. Who would go into the street say, #ZANU-PF must go? Go where?
When we're waiting for 2023. So they could literally keep Hopewell until 2023, right?
No, all they're saying is, Hopewell, come to your senses. The only way ZANU-PF can go anyway is by the will of the people, which is the will of God. And what God has decreed, no man can change or vary. So,
but is God decreeing one beating citizens or arresting citizens?
They're saying, I'm doing it in your interest, because we have to protect you from these malicious, ambitious, adventurous Westerners who are here to confuse little minds.
So this is where I come back to the essence of the law, because we're dealing with someone who's sounding, if we're to take that line of thinking, they're sounding paranoid, maybe not only about what could happen to them, but what could happen. They genuinely believe that whatever they're doing about the situation is protecting the interests of the people, but without consulting the provisions of the law of the land. He's essentially making himself, Mnangagwa that is, a mini god over the voices of 15 million odd people.
Yeah, so if we look at that as a parting short and instructive note, Wildfire, do you think ideas matter?
Definitely, ideas do matter. Without ideas, there is nothing constructive that can happen.
Only constructive, even destructive.
Well, yeah, they could be destructive.
Something will happen, but its essence will be.
I can think ill will of Miriam. I may not act on it. But if I had the power to act on it, I could just simply nod to say, Hopewell has tweeted some subversive materials. Your Excellency, we know Hopewell is not your favorite. So do we need really to talk to you, Your Excellency? He says, no, let the law take its course.
Mm.
And there's no protection. There's no one who is above the law. And we are constitutionalists par excellence. And we removed Mugabe in the interest of the public. Guess what? Even the opposition was with us when we were sanitizing our own party. So we managed to flush out Mugabe like Hopewell Chin'ono. And you know why Mugabe was imprisoned? In the blue roof.
Yeah, they were protecting.
Also, they protected also.
They protected.
No, they were protecting against the public that were angry with him. That Mugabe was going to die in the street and die like Ceausescu, die like Gaddafi. But Your Excellency, we try to protect and preserve our movement, glorious movement that liberated the people. So, who am I? Who is Hopewell, knowing how far we have come on this lonely road to protect the helpless people of Zimbabwe?
Very, very interesting observation, and obviously a very corny way of imprisoning an individual in the name of protecting.
In the name of protection.
In the name of protection. So it just encourages.
What a protection.
What? A VIP treatment.
Yeah, that's what they say even to gays and lesbians. We are protecting you. You know, we are not there yet. And my friend, your freedom is a threat to you.
How is my freedom to call another woman my spouse protected by me being all my other rights being taken away?
Okay, you're on mute, Mr. M.
They say, Miriam, you know we're a religious country. Extremely religious.
Which religion? The hyenas that they displayed it.
No, they'll tell you, Miriam, you know who we are. We have come far in protecting civil liberties. But the problem is that don't be alone don't be a crusader. Because it's not good. Just vote quietly, lose quietly.
Is that fair, Wildfire? They're being deprived of yourself going and getting yourself a husband.
No, I mean that's invasion of my freedom, and yeah. I want to enjoy my enterprises here. And then you're telling me that no, I'm protecting you against yourself or against other people that might harm you because of your chosen sexuality.
Yeah. Then Oliver says, Mutuma, have you read Mtetwa's appeal against Hopewell's bail refusal? She acknowledged that Hopewell is a case to answer. And this is Olivier who is making. We are not there yet, but I take your point. All we are saying is that does the head of state exhibit qualities of restraint that Miriam is speaking to, that in terms of the constitution, the president has no right to call someone a cockroach or a parasite or an enemy of the state.
A dark force of the state.
That must be evidence-based. And where there is no independence and impartiality in terms of establishing that allegation, then it means the president has overstepped the limitations imposed on him by the Constitution because there are checks and balances. And he is not supposed to be involved in the processing of a crime at all. And that's what Miriam is saying. So if the president has already made those utterances, in what capacity was he making those utterances? As the head of state, the head of the police, the head of the NPA, or the head of another organ of government that is not accountable or known to the public? So this whole processing, ordinarily, there is something. Which section of the Constitution is that? I'm not sure. Jube asking the section of the Constitution. The Constitution only gives the power of the president to uphold and protect the Constitution. And what Miriam is saying, there is a separation of powers. There is parliament, there is the judiciary, and there is the president and the executive. But no member of the executive can pronounce anyone guilty of an offense or even of undermining the constitutional order. They should open a case against the person, and then it will be the state versus that person. And the president is one branch of government who must allow the judiciary to do that. Then Emmanuel said, the president said he is the police, he is the army, he is the judiciary, and he's everything. So that's what Emmanuel is saying. I'm saying is the state of mind. If a person says I'm everything, then one has to decide whether that is a quality that is needed of a president, or a president must be below the law, not above it. What's your take?
I think the president needs to be below the law, just like any other citizen. He is just an administrator that took oath to protect and uphold the Constitution. But then, if he goes beyond the confines of the Constitution, it becomes the judge and the jury. Then it begs the question of does he understand what the Constitution stipulates? And he is a lawyer. Well, apparently that is what I've heard. That he is.
Let's not go there.
Yeah. So it gets one to question whether he really understands what he signed to uphold.
I have somebody who's dangling $100 note at me, saying, show me proof that Mnangagwa is a lawyer and I'll give you $100. So I've got money riding on this. But at any rate, I wanted to highlight something about the rights of the masses that Mnangagwa may be purporting to be protecting. Where are these masses that he's speaking on behalf of? If you look at Beirut today, we've got hundreds of thousands of people protesting and in solidarity, showing their voice. So Hopewell's tweets, why is it that there are so much of an aggravation to his supremacy as leader of the republic? Why is his Hopewell, or if we add Jacob Ngarivume, there are two people who are unarmed except for their tweets. So where are these masses that Mnangagwa is protecting from these dangerous tweets?
So you see, what I've been trying to understand is if the citizens disgruntled or are not satisfied with a few things that happen within the country, you then silence them by locking down the country and use COVID as a smokescreen and saying, look, I'm protecting you against getting infected. Let's wait it out until this COVID is done. Then you can come and protest.
They
There is
can't.
an underlying.
Yeah, someone
No,
said
but
they can't arrest. I'm not saying everybody on the street, but I'm just trying to unpack the whole sequence of events. As
Yeah,
somebody, I'm still somebody who doesn't actually know why Hopewell is incarcerated in the first place. So um, it, they can't. If I look at it from a practical, what I like to think is a practical position.
right.
If they try to arrest everybody, they won't. The people would win. So maybe the idea of Mnangagwa protecting the people from the tweets of Hopewell and Garivume is a flawed idea that citizenry needs to unpack. That's my take.
Okay. Njube says, who polices the enforcement of the Constitution?
Who puts the constitution in place in the first instance? Let's look at it from there, because sometimes we're quick to rubbish the constitution, but we don't know why it exists and
Mhm.
why it's a bedrock of what ought to happen, rather than a reflection of what is happening. Because if we look at ED, you might
Yeah.
genuinely think that he's actually upholding the law, which is why I want to test the law against his utterances. He could actually be more dangerous than Hopewell. And
Mm.
nobody's telling him that, look, your utterances are worse than Hopewell saying you're stealing from the nation, you're destroying the nation. So the
Mhm.
Constitution, there was a referendum, there is a parliament that deliberates, acts, and guided by that same constitution. And
Mhm.
whatever parliament deliberates upon is either voted into law or voted against. And then we have the judiciary that is there, paid by the taxpayer to enforce the upholding of the constitution. Then we have the executive, which is supposed to adhere to the constitution, in making sure that we're law-abiding citizenry. And then you have citizens asking who's responsible, and yet all the way it's us. So then we
Mm.
have a bigger problem than the arrest of Hopewell. If citizens don't know where our responsibilities sit, we elect the critical part of the enforcing of the Constitution, and we are here saying who's got the responsibility on the Constitution. Uh, it's painful. It's painful.
I feel your anger. I mean, but I don't blame the Njube for asking that question. Um, I think that there is a whole lot of people that really don't understand their own powers, and their role in the government and how the government
Mm.
is shaped, and the reason why it exists. So I would say, look, it begs the issue of do we need literacy around why what a government is and isn't, and what role I play in the government. And obviously, when it comes to the issue of the constitution, what role do I play as a citizen? You know.
Yeah, you see, I think there is very much a vacuum of
Mhm.
what how it ought to be. And
Mhm.
when a couple of years ago, ED uttered, "The voice of the people is the
The
voice
people
of
is the
God,"
boss.
it's
Yeah.
it's it's actually instructive to the people, but
Mhm.
um when it's very rare that you hear someone having being asked to repeat first grade. But I
Mm.
think with regards to knowing the constitution and the constitutional provisions for Zimbabwe,
Mhm.
um, it is very important that we keep repeating first grade until we understand the first grade of constitutionalism, understanding it uh,
Mhm.
at a personal level. What does it mean to me?
Mhm.
Do I get up out of my house, get Tumbare Musika, and then take it upon myself and say, all you vendors, everything that you have, I'm going to take, I'm going to confiscate. Do I have that right? If not, what is it that prevents me from having that right to get there? And how come we let the police, the government do that and keep quiet? Constitutionalism 101. People raise the citizen in upholding the rule of law on the basic issues that we interact with on a daily basis. This is what lets us to then sit around and try to trivialize Hopewell's arrest
Mhm.
and try to analyze something when it's, the whole world. If you look at the response of the whole world,
Yeah.
it's instructive to say this is wrong even by your own constitution.
Mhm.
You are
But then,
muffling the voice of the right to free speech by arresting Hopewell.
I mean,
That alone, and
also,
we
by the
love,
way,
yeah.
also the fact that when he was uh, touring around SADC, meeting and greeting. I don't know whether it was meet and greet. I actually attended one of those meet and greets at the Zimbabwean embassy in
Mm,
2017, where the words are still echo up to this day. The voice of
mm,
the people is the voice of God. But what has changed 3 years down the line, where
mm,
the voice of the people becomes the voice of darkness, they are no longer the voice
mm,
of
mm.
God. Because if the voice of the people was still the voice of God, he would take a moment and listen to what people are saying.
But this is where now we come into his mind. What is going on in his mind? What is informing him um, of the threat of tweets by Hopewell?
Mhm.
Who is the dark forces that is referring to? Is it the hashtag Zimbabwean Lives Matter?
Mhm.
Mm. So yeah,
Right.
so it leaves me with even more questions and
Oh,
more.
there is a lot of questions that need to be answered, and
Mm.
it's unfortunate we are dark forces. We can't reach out to him because he's being protected against us dark forces. We
You're
might
a
just
dark
confuse
horse.
him.
He wasn't talking about the pigment of your skin. Even Doug Coulthard can be a dark force with his white skin.
So yeah, no,
You're so
it's a
dark, I can't see your tattoos, Moto.
need a flashlight.
Well,
Yeah.
no, I have to dash off now.
Yeah, I think we are done anyway.
But
Yeah.
thank you for your time, Mr. M and Mr. Moto.
And no,
Okay.
thank you so much, my boy.
All right. Thanks. Bye
All
bye.
right.
Okay, so I think here we are just provoking thought into the state of mind. And hopefully we can keep on provoking so that we build societies where knowledge is shared, where things that may appear obvious and straightforward are unpacked.
Yeah. All right. No. Thank you so much, Mr. M. Until later
Yeah.
on. All
Okay,
right.
thanks.
Cheers. Thank you so much to our listeners and viewers. We will be back at 9 p.m.